minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Turner, you indicated in your testimony that you really don't think the FCC has gone far enough on this, and I assume that means that you would prefer the FCC to have gone and reclassified into Title II.
Well, look, I recognize that net neutrality appears messy, and it's really because it's a Band-Aid to what the earlier FCC
Okay,
did
well, I'm
to the
just
Act.
wondering about this. I'm trying to find the line. Would, in your opinion, the Title II be a better option for us to be going down rather than stopping at this level?
You may not be aware, but much of the large business enterprise market for broadband is today regulated lightly under Title II. Mr. Cicconi's
my point is that you'd like to expand that and bring it into this field.
Well, I think by doing that, the WISPA Association, which Mr. DeReggie was a member of, they would actually probably prefer that because it takes away the regulation on the Internet service provider layers and moves it down.
So your support for going to Title II is because the business some in the business community would like that?
My support for Title II is because that's what Congress adopted in the 1996 Telecommunications Act. It's the law of the land.
Ooh, well, let me associate with somebody who was on the committee at that time. That some of this is an interpretation. I got to say one thing. Let me just say one thing. I just think that I want to clarify something. There was a comment made earlier. Mr. Turner, have you ever run for elected office?
I have not, no.
You've never gotten a vote? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify. There's statements made here that Mr. Turner represents consumers. Now, people around the world are standing up and demanding the right to elect their representatives. And it's not just on Mr. Turner. We do this all the time. I'm sorry. In this country, you elect your representatives. And I really think it's quite inappropriate from this gentleman's point of view for us to be in this institution and basically assume that people represent someone without that person having the right to choose who represents them. Self-declared representatives is what Libya is fighting against right now. So I just want to say that in all fairness, nothing personal. It is something that we do in this institution that is quite inappropriate, I think, seeing the makeup of this institution. So
I meant no offense, sir. We do have 550,000 members that I do represent that are consumers.
Right. Okay. And you can say that. But the fact is that when it comes down to it, the choices you make, we try to open them up. I just think that we got to remember that we elect people in our system, and that I just worry about how many people are identified as representatives without having gone through a due process that I would assume would be a minimum standard in our society. That aside, I wish Mrs. Chase was here because I had a question, but Mr. Reggie, interesting thing of Mrs. Chase's situation, she was a Zipcar, and if I remember right, normally if she wanted to get basically rated somewhere on through the system, it would either be alphabetical, which would put her at the bottom, or it would be based on how many hits she gets. Now, if you're a little guy going up against a big guy, that system kind of puts you at a major disadvantage, wouldn't it?
It surely does.
Now, so she now actually, her company or former company, had the option of paying into an advertising mode that moved her up to the front and made it big. So by having the ability to sort of pay to play, that gave her the ability to compete on a much more even footing than somebody who was an established big guy, right?
That's correct.
Now, what would happen if the FCC said, no, that's not an option either, that somebody can't buy their way onto the front page by paying for advertisement? What would that do to the little guy's ability to take on the big established operations in this kind of business that Zipcar was in?
Yeah, that would let the little guy have an equal opportunity.
Okay, I just think that as we go down here, there's we forget that a lot of times what we perceive to be a big advantage of the big guy is really the only vehicle that a little guy has to compete in the system. And I always get kind of frustrated if somebody comes from a blue-collar background, and that's why, Mr. Turner, I bring this up all the time because everybody says they represent the poor and the working class, and some of us never got to elect these guys. But I think that when it comes down to the system of who gets to participate, the fact is big government favors big business. Little business is the one who keeps big business honest, and allowing the little guy to compete get access, that's what keeps the big guy on us. Traditionally, when we think we're helping with big government, we end up actually creating more protection for the big guy.
Gentlemen,
Is that
time.
fair to say?
The concern for small businesses is why we are strong supporters of network neutrality, sir.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. Now recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Kinzinger, for 5 minutes.